Hello, everybody. What's up, Leafs Nation? How's it going? How are things? How's everyone dealing with this ridiculously cold weather? Ridiculously cold weather. But yeah, I hope everyone's doing good, feeling good. We're going to get right to it. There's a lot to talk about right now. And so the Leafs started the new year off good. Win versus LA, 2 versus San Jose. Everything was good. Everybody was feeling great. Leafs were dominating, just dominating. And then, something changed. Not sure what. I don't know if the Leafs just started feeling good about themselves or what the problem is, but it's a reoccurring theme with this team, and the reoccurring theme is just lackadaisical, just like you don't care. I mean, obviously they do care, but as much as we complain about the Toronto Maple Leafs, they're failing into 100-point season, right? Like let's always, like I say, let's look at the macro, right? Let's zoom out and look at the whole situation. As bad as the Leafs have been this season, and they've been really bad for stretches, they're on pace for 100 points. I would hate for the rest of the NHL to see what a dominant Toronto Maple Leafs look like that are just running teams for a month and a half. But they're up 3-1 against the New York Islanders. They lull themselves to sleep. They're up 3-0 versus Colorado. They lull themselves to sleep. Like it's as if they see themselves playing so good, and they're like, "Oh man, we're so good. This is boring." And then all of a sudden, boom, they give up the lead. The other team is back. You go to overtime and you blow it. They were up 3-0 against Colorado, and they couldn't even get it to overtime. And that's the thing. But it's so hard to break these games down, right? It's incredibly hard to break these games down. Like, the Leafs have a dominant first period against Colorado. Let's talk about the Colorado game, right? After the first period, the shots are 15-7 for the Leafs. They're up 3-0. Okay? They come out, they're dominant. Now, they only give up 13 shots in the second period. And it's not the shot quantity or the shot quality that's the problem here. The Leafs legitimately had a number of brain farts on the ice, right? So they're on the penalty kill. They take another penalty. Everybody stops playing. The puck slides to Brody, and all Brody has to do is touch the puck. He lifts his foot, lets the puck go to the Avalanche player in front of the net, and it's a goal. How is TJ Brody not scratched the very next game after a brain fart of that caliber? Like, why are hockey players so afraid to touch the puck when there's a high stick, a hand pass, there's a delayed penalty? What is it about hockey players where they look at the puck and it's like a grenade and they don't want to touch it to stop the play? Stop the play. If you don't stop the play, the guy grabs the puck and goes up the ice, and it's a breakaway. And we've as a hockey fan, if you watch hockey on a nightly basis, you see it a lot around the NHL. it's a high stick and the guy doesn't want to call it to stop the play. I mean, he doesn't want to touch the puck to stop the play. All of a sudden, the other team just makes a quick pass across the ice and the guy's on a breakaway and it ends up in the back of your net. Why don't you want to touch the puck to stop the play? I don't get it. It's a fundamental thing. I refuse to accept the fact that like coaches are telling players to not touch the puck to stop the play. Touch the puck and stop the damn play. It doesn't make any sense. And then Austin Matthews puts the puck on a Colorado defenseman's stick, and that ends up in the net. It's just brain fart after brain fart. If the Leafs just play sound fundamental hockey, these games don't happen. And yet we're still here, and they're still on pace for 100 points and guaranteed to make the playoffs. And yet we still complain because we like to see perfection. You're never going to, perfection is unattainable. Perfection is unattainable. The Leafs are a team that turn over 8 to 10 players every offseason, and there's no continuity amongst the team. Their penalty killers there's no continuity amongst their penalty killing players. It changes every single year. The number one power play doesn't change every single year, but the second power play changes a lot. You used to look at a power play that had guys like Bunting and Kerfoot and now it's Domi and Bertuzzi and Nyes, and it's the second unit pretty much changes completely. The second power play, the penalty killers change completely. The defense changes a lot. Bottom six changes a lot. And there's no continuity, and yet all you see online is trade this guy, he's no good, do this, do that. Meanwhile, I think it really just comes down to the coach. You've been the coach for 6-7 years, and you don't know where to put Austin Matthews. You don't know if he should be playing with Willie. You don't know if he should be playing with Marner. Maybe JT should be his left winger because Nyes ain't doing the job. Bertuzzi ain't doing the job. Robertson ain't doing the job. Holmberg ain't doing the job, even though Holmberg's looked really good in the last week or so. Nobody can do the job on that top line. And Matthews plays better when he plays with Nylander, to me. Nylander is a no-nonsense, skated up in a straight line, blow past everybody, and look for the cross ice or put it in yourself, right? It's a lot less fancy and a lot less complicated than what Marner does. And based on how Marner is going, he kills the offense completely. Like, there are times where Matthews looks completely dominant, and then there are times where you think, how is this guy on pace for 75 goals or 72 goals? It doesn't make any sense. Nobody's getting him the puck for long stretches of time, and he's got to go in there and he's got to bang and take cross checks and do all this other stuff. I'm not even going to get into the refs. I've said it before and I'll say it again. The NHL is not officiating nothing. They're not calling penalties. They're just managing games. They did it in New York versus the Islanders. They gave the Islanders all these power plays in the first two periods, and then once the Leafs were dominant again, they're like, we're just letting the boys play. Of course, it's Matthews gets cross-checked. The ref tells the coach, "Oh, he fell over by himself." Yeah, he fell over by himself. He winded himself. He hurt his own ribs. He couldn't get up. He couldn't breathe. Didn't look good. He didn't look comfortable skating. All because Austin Matthews just decided to face plant into the boards. Okay, ref. Meanwhile, Timothy Liljegren takes a shot, the guy's coming at him at 100 miles an hour, and if he raises his hands to kind of, brace himself for a check or a hit or something, it's high sticking, and he sees that from a mile away, obviously. It's a joke. The Leafs have been in the bottom 5 of the NHL for the last 6 years in power play opportunities. They just refuse to give anything to the Leafs. If you look at the top of the NHL in terms of power play opportunities, it's all the shit teams. Why? Because the NHL has to manage the games so that you, as a fan of a shit team of Arizona, Nashville, I don't know, whatever garbage team that you choose to watch, they don't want you to turn off the TV, and they don't want the Leafs to get 3 power plays and go up 3-0 in the first period, and you turn it off and you walk away, because viewership in the United States is pretty much keeping the league going. If a quarter of the NHL fans in the United States turn off TVs, the league is going to fold. And they already know that the Canadians are glued to their TVs, so who gets shafted? Everybody gets shafted except the Edmonton Oilers. You can't touch McDavid without getting a tripping call. When Matthews got cross-checked into the boards, the Edmonton Oilers got a power play for tripping. That's a joke. So anyways, it really comes down to this. Sheldon Keefe, after God knows how many years, still doesn't know how to deploy his best lineup. If you don't know by now, next up, I don't even care. I don't care what your record is. I don't care, if the Leafs are going to go and get Tanev and Dumba and all these things and improve the defense, and it's going to be amazing. I don't care. I'm done with Sheldon Keefe. If you don't know what your optimal lineup is after 7 years, next up, it's time to bring in somebody who has been paying attention. If you don't know what your best lineup is, if you don't know what the best combination is, if you don't know who Tavares should be playing with, and you don't know who Matthews should be playing with, these are the 2 main drivers, number 1 center, number 2 center, and they got 2 $11 million wingers. If you don't know what the best combination of these 4 players is, next up, I don't care about anything else. I don't care if you got the best power play stats. I don't care if you got the best penalty stats. I don't care if you're the best defensive coach, the best offensive coach. You could be the son of God. It doesn't matter. If you don't know who Matthews and Tavares should be playing with, if you don't know what the best combination is, you shouldn't be the coach of the Toronto Maple Leafs. It's been, 6-7 years? If you don't know, just admit that you don't know what you're doing. And next up, because the Leafs are lackadaisical, their defense is horrible. Mike Van Ryn is not doing a good job. I was actually super happy when they signed Mike Van Ryn when he left St. Louis, because St. Louis has a great defense. They play with great structure. They won the Stanley Cup with him. And I just thought to myself, he was going to bring a lot of that here. But since Mike Van Ryn has arrived, the Leafs can't hold the lead. The defense makes stupid decisions. Nobody can rein in Jake McCabe. Jake McCabe is literally a rover during a shinny game if you watch it on television. This guy is just flying around, and if a goal goes in and he's on the ice, 1,000% he's on his stomach in front of the net. Useless. If you're going to make a trade, if teams are calling, let's say Arizona, who has Dumba, he's a right-handed defenseman, he's good. If you're going to trade for a right-handed defenseman in Dumba, and you need to move out salary to make that happen, then the first guy I look at is Jake McCabe. And if they don't want Jake McCabe, you give him TJ Brody and plus. You know what I'm saying? If I have to acquire a defenseman to make my team better defensively, and I have to move out salary, TJ Brody and Jake McCabe are first up. I don't care what you have to say about Jake McCabe. I don't care that he fights. I don't care that he hits. None of that stuff leads to wins. We've already seen it time and time again. I'm not going to go over the toughness thing. The whole toughness thing with, Reeves completely blew up. It's a waste of $1.3 million on the cap and a roster spot. I don't care. It's to tell me that you got to keep Jake McCabe because he hits. He's a defensive liability all over the ice. I'd rather have Benoit, Lagesson, or Lajoie, play in that spot because they do the bare minimum for $850,000, and that's all you need. As a defensive defenseman, if you could bring Hal Gill out of retirement for $850,000, I'd do it. Like, honestly, the Leafs just need a guy who's going to be no nonsense, play defense like the way Benoit does, and for league minimum, that's all you need. You know what I'm saying? Like, at this point, TJ Brody and Jake McCabe shouldn't be on the Leafs if you're truly a contender and want to do anything in the playoffs. One, you got to move TJ Brody to acquire money because he's a $5 million player, and you got to move money to get money. And Jake McCabe, just because he's garbage. I don't care how physical he is. I don't care how many times he hits people. If he fights, all that stuff is not worth how bad he is defensively. The Leafs are atrocious, and if they could just think to yourself already, the Leafs have played X amount of games this season. If you have to think of all the games where the Leafs were in complete tire fires defensively and gave up leads, how many more points would they have? And would they be at the top of their division? I think they would be. I think if you talk to any, sane person who watches a lot of hockey and say, hey, if the Leafs, if they didn't blow, let's just say 5 wins, right? They've blown way more leads than that, but let's just say the Leafs, won 5 more games than they have already. That's 10 points. That puts them 1 point back of Boston with 2 games in hand. Right? You're at a 70% winning. You're at 700% on the season, and you're a juggernaut. And that's just the turnover. It's just the stupid little stuff like TJ Brody farts, lets the puck go underneath his feet to the guy, to the Colorado player in front of the net. That's the Detroit game-winning goal where McCabe is way late to his spot. Liljegren is stuck between a rock and a hard place, and he just tries to ring it around. And I think it's not Andrew Cup, and behind the net, but whoever's coming around the boards on the side, the Detroit player reads the play perfectly. Liljegren puts it on his stick. He puts it out front, and I think Cop's the one that scores. So it's why? Because Jake McCabe is never in position. He's flying up the ice at some crazy speed, jumping into place. Bro, when's the last time you have, how much, you can't score goals if your life depended on it. If Marner puts one on a tee for you and you get a wide open empty net and you don't miss the net like you usually do, maybe McCabe gets a goal, but there's no offense in his game. He's always jumping up into place, and he's just flying around the ice. I'm watching the television, and I'm watching him take, Morgan Riley's behind the net with the puck, and this guy, you just see him at the corner of the screen. He comes and he flies around Morgan Riley, and he goes straight out of the zone. The puck is behind the net. Your defensive partner is by himself. Where are you going? Where are you going, man? It's unreal, the stuff I see McCabe doing. Just sit back and play some defense. Not one person in this town is asking for you to create offense or score goals. Literally, you are getting off scot-free, making $2 million a season. Do nothing. Don't touch the puck. Don't shoot it. Don't pass it. Don't do nothing. Just Forget about the offense. Stay back and play defense. Push guys into boards. Break up the cycle, and that's it. No one's asking for you to do nothing else. But this guy just refuses to stay put. If Mike Van Ryan can't get him to stay in the defensive zone, if Sheldon Keefe can't get him to stay in the defensive zone, then you got to do something. You got to bench him or you got to trade him. It's just a disaster with this guy, Jake McCabe. I don't care what else he does. I don't care how physical he is. He could be the toughest, best fighter in the NHL. None of that stuff matters, man. They've sold you guys a false bill of goods, man. They keep telling you, oh, there's no response. Matthews got cross-checked. Ladies and gentlemen, even though we complain, you know, if you just watch other games, other hockey games, you see that other good teams do this stuff too. You saw the Leafs just a week or two ago play the Anaheim Ducks, have 100 attempts at the net and 57 shots and just dominate. Well, that Anaheim team came back and beat the Florida Panthers last night in OT. So the Florida Panthers have bad games. Columbus came back versus the Canucks, and Columbus beat the Vancouver Canucks in a shootout. So it happens to good teams. The Kings who have been like, what's their record? In their last 10, the Kings are 2-4-4. The LA Kings. They won last night, 5-2 versus the Carolina Hurricanes. Right? The Avalanche, who, the stupidity of this town, you get the Avalanche that come through, the media says, oh my God, Nathan MacKinnon and Makar are so good. And then our coach says, when those two guys are on the ice, it's a whole different league. Guess what? The Colorado Avalanche lost to the Montreal Canadiens last night. The Montreal Canadiens. The Colorado Avalanche, the team who Sheldon Keefe said, when Nathan MacKinnon and Makar are on the ice, it's a whole other league above the NHL, lost to the Montreal Canadiens last night. So I know these good players come through the town, and McDavid's here tonight, and we're going to see the Leafs play the Oilers tonight, and they're a good team. We see good players all the time. The Leafs have good players. But the way people talk about the other guys on the other teams when they come through Toronto, please. Please. Oh my God. Where is, I'm trying to bring up guys. So apparently Nathan MacKinnon is very good. According to Sheldon Keefe, he's so good he's in a league above the NHL. Guess who didn't score 40 goals in the NHL until his 6th year in the NHL? Nathan MacKinnon. Guess who scored 40 goals in his rookie season? Austin Matthews. Guess who's in the conversation as being the best American goal scorer to ever play the game? Maybe the best ever, since he's outscoring Ovechkin at the same time in Ovechkin's career. So Matthews to this point is scoring more goals per game and has more goals than Ovechkin did at this time in his career playing this many games. You know what I'm saying? Like, McKinnon's been in the NHL what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. He's been in the NHL 11 years. He has one 100-point season. Matthews has been in the NHL, I mean, so what, 7 or 8 years? He's got 100-point season. He's got one 100-point season. So does McKinnon. McKinnon doesn't have more goals, doesn't have more points. What makes McKinnon better than Matthews? Because he played on a good team and they won a Stanley Cup. It takes way more than one player to do it. But it's the lack of confidence, and you see it in guys like Keefe. He has no confidence in himself as a good coach. There are Leaf fans who don't have confidence in themselves as human beings, and then and so that translates to I have no confidence in my team as a sports fan. Listen, if you want to walk around and be this unsure person who's like, my team sucks and my life decisions suck and I'm not good at my job, I'm not a good boyfriend, husband, father, whatever it is. If you want to walk around all the time saying I'm not good at this and I'm not confident in this and my team sucks and everything just bad happens to me, it's always the Maple Leafs and they always lose and the Blue Jays always lose. Then just don't watch sports. I mean, what's the point? If everything is about losing all the time, then why watch it? What's the point? It doesn't make any sense. If you told me I can only watch like F1 racing and your favorite driver was going to lose every single race, if you told me, hey, get into F1, pick who your favorite driver is going to be. Lewis Hamilton. Lewis Hamilton's going to lose every single race. Why would I watch? What's the point? If that's how you feel about your hockey team, then why watch? You know, the Leafs are failing into a 100-point season. There's tons of changes they need to make. I said at the beginning of this year that they punted on this season. When they should have gotten a new coach, they didn't have enough time because of when Treliving came in and that there was a draft and free agency and Nylander and, you know, arbitration with Samsonov and blah, blah, blah. The guy didn't have enough time to go look for a coach, so they punted on the season. They went and signed Domi. They went and signed a bunch of guys to 1-year contracts just to see how it would work. And everybody was stoked. Everybody was gassed up. They're like, oh man, we got so much grit. We added some grit. The Leafs are going to be so much tougher. Are the Leafs tougher? What's Reeves doing? Scratched every game. Who's Tyler Bertuzzi pushing around? Nobody. The guy just flails his stick at every loose puck. He has no control of the puck. He barely makes plays. And then you got Max Domi. Man, does this guy love a saucer pass. But ultimately, what's he going to do? What's he going to do for this team in the playoffs? He's got no one to play make to. He's got no scoring wingers. Last game, they put Bertuzzi, Domi, and Marner on the same line. It was okay. Nothing flashy. They put Tavares with Robertson and Yarncrook. Nothing. And they put Willie on the top line with Holmberg. And it was okay. But is this the team that's going to contend for the Stanley Cup? I don't think so. Like, who are you going to go? Like, it's fine to say trade this guy, fire this guy, trade this guy, fire this guy, but it's got to make sense in the bigger picture. I personally don't think the Leafs should make any trades to this trade deadline. Why go out and spend assets when your team is this bad? Like the Leafs have a lot of holes, and I keep talking about, every game you're in this boat and it's got a million leaks. How many leaks can you plug to save yourself from drowning? And right now, it's why go into the trade deadline and trade first round picks, second round picks, third round picks, fourth round picks, prospects, forward prospects, defensive prospects? Why? If you could make a longer, I mean, looking at the big picture, if you can trade for a guy with term, let's say like there's a decent defenseman out there and he's got 2 or 3 years left on his contract or 4 years left on his contract, and you need to move money out to move money in, and they take TJ Brody because he's an expiring contract and they get to open up that cap hit. And you attach on an asset. Okay, that makes sense. You're not just making a trade for now. You got a defenseman that you think is good and he's signed for a couple of years. So, you have cost certainty. You know what the cap is going to be, 87.7 next year, and then 92 or 93 after that. So it's going up to 87.7. We're at 83 and a half. You got roughly $4 million to spend, which you've already spent on Nylander. So if you were to move out $5 million in TJ Brody, $5 million can get you a really good D-man. $5 million can probably get you 2 D-man. Defensemen are not expensive. You know what I'm saying? Like Giordano's a good defenseman, he's cheap. Liljegren's a good defenseman, he's cheap. Benoit, Lagesson, all cheap. But if you can go out there and there's a good defenseman on a team that is probably not going to do anything, whether it's Calgary with Tanev or Calgary with Hanifin or Arizona with Dumba, like these are good trades. There are good defensemen out there that you can acquire that have some term. I don't really like a lot of the names that I hear. Like this is Sean Walker guy from Philadelphia, or the Columbus defenseman everybody talks about. I'm really not interested. But there are good D men out there, and there are going to be some free agents. So not only do you have to open up cap space to be able to add in the off season, but if there is a guy available with term, then you gotta send out some money in TJ Brody or McCabe. I think that's easily $7 million you can ship out and not be any worse. Right? TJ Brody is right now playing on the right side with Morgan Riley. I think you can put Dumba there. I think you could put Liljegren there. And then McCabe is a left-handed guy. Benoit has already proven he can play well in that position. Giordano's good as a 5'6" guy, 5'6", 5'7" guy, and Benoit's also a 5'6", 5'7" guy. And like Dumba is a good right-handed defenseman. There's a couple out there. I think Tanev is left-handed, I believe. These names aren't sexy either, right? Like none of these names that I'm naming, whether it's Sean Walker or Dumba or Tanev or Hanifin, none of these guys turn your team into a contender. So at the end of the day, why spend the asset now when you could just wait until free agency? But it also means that you have to play out this season and then play playoff games with this roster, and you don't want to be embarrassed either, so you do have to play better. And I think that it all comes down to the coach again. Your players have to be ready. They have to be sharp. They have to know the systems well enough so that when, certain situations happen or when you turn over the puck, it's just not straight into scramble mode. Like, you have to know that where you have to be on the ice. Like when you look at the Boston Bruins and their lack of talent, like if you had to name me the top two centers on the Boston Bruins, most people couldn't do it. That's how, you know, that's how bad their depth is. But they just keep winning. They just play the same game over and over. They know where to be on the ice. They're always throwing pucks at the net. There's always a guy off to the side of either side of the net. They just throw pucks on net. Everything funnels to the net. And then if you take away the front of the net, one guy just takes 3 steps back and then he's right in a slot and he's ripping pucks in the net. So it's a very simple system they play. Everybody comes back defensively. They don't cheat for offense. They don't need to win 5-4. They want to win 2-1. They want to win 3-1. They want to win 2-0. And that's the philosophy I want on the Leafs. I don't care about goals and offense. I don't need 60 goals. I don't need 70 goals. None of this stuff matters. Just do what it takes to win games. And when you see the Boston Bruins and some of these other teams, like Vegas has been struggling recently too. Like Vegas is 4-6 in their last 10. Los Angeles is 2-4-4. Dallas is 5-4-1. Nashville is 5-4-1. The New York Rangers are 4-5-1. The New York Islanders are 3-6-1. Like, there are good teams that go through bad stretches, but the continuity of the mentality of the identity that you need. Like right now, when you think of the Leafs, they don't really have an identity. They don't have an identity because their captain has zero emotion. There's no personality in the guy. And when your captain has no personality, your team has no personality. And when you don't have any personality, how can you develop an identity? Like, it only makes sense that you go give Matthews, Marner, Riley, go give one of those guys the captaincy and change the culture of the team, change the emotion around the team, change the energy around the team. This team is so quiet and so monotone is because their captain at the very top of that chain, the leadership, is a guy who doesn't say nothing. He doesn't get upset. He doesn't punch anybody in the face. He doesn't push anybody over. And Tavares used to be old school. I've seen Tavares fight in the NHL before. Like, I don't see how this guy, after everything that's gone on in Toronto and how good they are and how they fall short, I don't know how this guy just doesn't get pissed off and just cross-check somebody face first into the boards from behind. Like, I don't know why he doesn't just let loose. Like, show some emotion. And that's why, they have these lulls in their game where first period they make Colorado look like an AHL team, and in the second period, the Leafs are the AHL team. You got to bring in a new coach, a new voice, a new systems. New systems. You got to establish a different way of playing. You gotta bring in something fresh and change the mentality of the players. And once you do, that coach has to watch this team, see who the next leader is going to be. Matthews, Riley, it doesn't matter. Change the culture of the team, change the energy of the team. Pick somebody else, give somebody else to see, and let Tavares sign his retirement contract for dirt cheap. And move on from that. Be something else. The Leafs don't have an identity. The Leafs don't play any sort of way. The Leafs don't come out on the ice and like scare you. When McDavid comes out on the ice, even though he's like no personality either, he has a way of playing that dictates who the Edmonton Oilers are. And on some nights, the Leafs have that. On some nights, the Leafs, when when their best stars are clicking, boom, 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 they look like world beaters. They're scoring 4, 5, 6, 7 goals, and they're so dominant. You're like, how did these guys ever miss? How do these guys ever lose a game the way they play sometimes? But it's also realistic to note that you can't play like that every single night. These guys are human. They have lives. Stuff goes on with kids, wives, family members, whatever. Like these guys go through stuff too, and that's where consistency comes in, and why the superstars can do it, and some other guys can. But in general, the Leafs are a good team, a great team that hand wins away. Colorado didn't take that game. The New York Islanders didn't take that game, and Detroit didn't take that game. The Leafs gave away 3 games because they fell asleep. They stopped paying attention to details. They didn't play it as hard as they needed to for 60 minutes. And I think that all comes down to culture, identity, and leadership. And all that needs to change. I think it starts with the coach. Tree Living is the new GM. I'm sure he has ideas. There's some good coaches out there. There was the guy that got fired in Minnesota. He's a good coach. Craig Berube, who got fired in St. Louis, is a good coach. Gerard Gallant is still out there. He's a good coach. You bring in somebody with some experience. Tree Living is an experienced guy. He's going to bring in someone with experience, somebody who's a little bit more hard-nosed and not as soft a coach. And then all of a sudden, he becomes someone who's watching the players and watching the locker room, and he says maybe Morgan Riley is the guy. Maybe it would suit this team to have Morgan Riley as captain. And then Tavares gets an A. Matthews and Marner switch out the A every other game, or however it is that they do it. But it's a fundamental change, because then Morgan Riley is more outspoken. He's got more of a personality. You just need somebody who's willing to yell after a goal, or break his stick after a goal against. Like, you need emotion, you need passion. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with getting excited after a goal or a win. All this, gotta respect them stuff is nonsense. Nobody respects the Leafs when they're on the ice with the Leafs. They will score as many goals as they want, and they will cross-check Matthews in the ribs, and they will hack Marner in the hands. There's no respect out there. What respect? It's a results-based business, and everyone's trying to get results out there. No one's going to cry for you if you get screwed in the playoffs over a call, or in the regular season the Leafs are bottom 5 in power play opportunities. Nobody cares. No one's going to be like, well, how much better would you be if you got 10 more power plays? I don't know, maybe I get 10 more goals. Why is it that when you look up the power play opportunities, the five of the worst teams in the NHL are top 10? Why? Because the NHL is helping them out. They don't want you to turn off the TV. They want to keep it kind of close so that you stay interested. And that's what managing games is all about. It's not about calling the rules. They don't care. They don't care what's in the rule book. It's a different interpretation every single time they review a play. So it is what it is. I'm excited about tonight. The Leafs always play Edmonton well. It's always a high energy game when Edmonton comes in. Is Edmonton coming to town tonight? Oh, no, we are in Edmonton. Well, that place is going to be rocking. So yeah, Leafs are in Edmonton. Yeah, I mean, I'm excited. The Leafs are still on pace for 100. William Nylander is still on pace for 120 points, 40 goals. Matthews is on pace for 70 goals. This little dip right here is going to get turned around. The Leafs always do turn it around. They go through these things, but the conversation I'm trying to have is not so much what happens right now. I don't care about the trade deadline. I'm not. I'm really not holding my breath for the Leafs to do something big at the deadline and grab some like really good player. I don't think they can figure it out in season. They don't have. I don't think they want to spend the assets that are required to get that piece. Plus, it's hard to figure out cap wise in the season. It's easier to figure out in the off season. So, you know, it is what it is. You got to take what you get, and you just have to play harder and grittier. Like, it's time. Like all the guys that got contracts this summer, it's time for them to really step up. I mean, we're gonna find out. Like Mitch Marner's have had an off season. He's only on pace for like 89, 90 points, or maybe 91, 92 points, and he's having a little bit of a down year. All of his advanced stats are not where they should be, and this is pretty much a contract season for him. He gets to start negotiating a new contract as of July 1st. And then if you go into those contract negotiations with Willie hitting 100 points before you and coming off back to back 40 goal seasons, I mean, where's your negotiating power? You can't score 40 like he can. And he'll have 100-point season under his belt, and you still don't have one. So I mean, all these things are moving parts. So we'll see what happens. But in general, tonight's game is going to be fun. I think we haven't hit the halfway point, but I think they played 40 games. 40 games, 41 games. Let's check it out. The Leafs have played 41 games. Okay, so we are exactly at the halfway point of the season, and the Leafs have 50 points. So they're on pace for 100, which is great. It's easily enough to make the playoffs. And they're probably going to play the Florida Panthers in the first round, which sucks. But at the end of the day, I mean, what does it matter who you're going to play, right? If you're good enough and you have cup aspirations, you can beat anybody and everybody. So the Florida Panthers, just first up, you beat them, and then you play Boston, and then you beat them, and then you just keep going, right? I mean, if you're really good and you're a cup contender, it doesn't really matter, does it? Who you play. It's dumb to say I want the Leafs to play this team first round or that team first round. What difference does it make? You got to go through a bunch of teams. So we'll see how it goes. The Leafs have 2 games on hand on Florida, and they are 7 points behind. And all of a sudden, every divisional game has become monumental. Like, Leafs cannot lose any games versus Tampa, Detroit, Florida. Like, all of a sudden, these divisional games are crazy 4-point games. Like, you cannot mess around with. You have to bring your A stuff like it's Game 7 of the Stanley Cup. Because the standings are starting to get tight. Things are getting wild out here. Anyways, thank you for tuning in to this episode of the TML Domain podcast. I appreciate you for tuning in. Like and subscribe as always. We very much appreciate it. Join us on Facebook. The community is getting very large there, almost at 1,000 on the TML Domain page, and the people are amazing. Amazing. Positivity is great. No negativity. Nobody's chirping nobody. No one's talking shit. No one's swearing. It's the best. It's just a bunch of people who love the Leafs for the Leafs. Hey, we're hockey fans, and we're die-hard Leaf fans, so we're going to enjoy it together, win, lose, or draw. And that's the way it should be. I actually forgot to tell you guys. So, you guys know that I'm the one who designed and created the Toronto Maple Leaf belt that they use in the locker room. And for Christmas, my wife got me the Austin Matthews McFarlane new action figure. I don't know if you guys have seen it. Let me hold it up for you guys. Look at that. Oops. I like it. It's pretty cool. Austin Matthews being my favorite. And then what I did was, I've always thought to myself that I want a mini version of the belt that I designed. And now guess what? Full American leather with snaps. Look at this bad boy. Gems and all. Dual plated, just like the original. We got the blue stones. Blue stones. Dual plated. Hand painted logo in the middle. Side plates. I love this thing, eh? Look at that. Look at this. This guy over here. Mr. Matthews. Look at that. Look. Isn't that gorgeous? Right? Ladies and gentlemen, look at that. Just wanted to show you guys. Thought you might be interested. The original's downstairs in the man cave. And now I have a mini-me. I shall call it mini-me. 1/8 the scale. It's actually really nice to like. Imagine. Like, if I put this on my arm and strapped it. Kind of a sick bracelet is that, eh? It's kind of the stuff that goes through my head. All right, everybody, thank you for tuning in. I really appreciate it. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and we'll see you next week. Take care. Bye-bye.